Welcome back to Retro Pocket. Alright people, if you love Metroidvanias and you think you've seen pretty much everything the genre has to offer, trust me, today's video is about to surprise you. I can assure you, these games are solid A+ gold mines, and they'll grab you, pull you in, and make you wonder where all the time went. Different styles, different tones, some brutal, some emotional, some straight up fun, but every single one of them is dangerously addictive. So let's jump into it, because even if one of these clicks with you, your backlog is about to get ignored hard. Hollow Knight. Kicking things off, a world that was already doomed long before anyone thought about saving it. The kingdom of Hallownest is falling apart, and it's not an accident. This kingdom tried to solve a mind-controlling infection by creating empty vessels, living containers meant to lock the problem away forever. Sounds clever. This also meant sacrificing entire generations and pretending that emotionless obedience was a solution. As you move deeper, the plot keeps exposing how badly that choice backfired. Cities kept functioning without purpose. Guardians protected ruins they barely remembered, and gods were sealed away rather than confronted. Even the quiet characters you meet feel like survivors of a bad decision they never agreed to. When Hollow Knight dropped in 2017, reactions were wild for a reason. People constantly praised how the story never talks down to you. I mean, environmental storytelling does the heavy lifting, and the lore stays airtight even when you chase optional endings. And the overwhelmingly positive reviews weren't about difficulty. They were about realizing the tragedy only clicks once everything finally lines up. Super Metroid. Revisiting this one always brings me back to the moment when a simple mission spiraled into something much heavier. Samus delivers the last surviving Metroid for research, barely leaves the station, and everything collapses instantly. Scientists are wiped out, Ridley escapes with the creature, and Zeebs wakes up like it never stopped being dangerous. As the story unfolds, it becomes clear the space pirates are rebuilding and they're experimenting, weaponizing life, and pushing the Metroids far beyond their natural state. Then comes the moment that completely flips the narrative. The Metroid you've been hunting down doesn't attack Samus at all. It recognizes her. And I think that connection adds real emotion weight to the final stretch, especially once sacrifice becomes unavoidable and survival depends on it. When Super Metroid arrived back in 1994, people loved it so much that praise came from every direction. Atmosphere, music, and exploration felt perfectly tuned. What stuck with me is realizing how foundational it felt even back then, like the blueprint for everything Metroidvania games would later build upon. Castlevania, Symphony of the Night. Now, Symphony of the Night turns gothic horror into a story about legacy and breaking destructive cycles. In this game, the story starts off at a weird point where victory already happened and somehow still didn't fix anything. Castlevania was supposed to be done after Dracula's defeat, yet the castle rises again on its own, and that alone tells you something's off. Development-wise, Konami deliberately broke away from the old level-by-level structure here. Instead of short stages, they built one massive castle meant to be explored slowly, which directly feeds into how the story unfolds. The story is about Alucard returning from isolation after Richter Belmont disappears and claims ownership of the castle. As you dig deeper, it becomes clear Richter isn't acting on free will. He's being controlled by Shaft, using him as a pawn to resurrect Dracula without triggering suspicion. And then comes the reveal that changes everything. The castle you explored was only half the truth. The inverted version exposes how deeply manipulation runs. When Alucard finally faces his father, it isn't a simple good versus evil moment. It's grief, love, and resentment colliding. Nine Souls. Here, everything spirals out of a single reckless awakening. Nine Souls was Red Candle Games pushing themselves far beyond horror and into a brutal action space. And the story is about Yi realizing he's the reason New Kunlun is breaking apart. He reactivated the Nine Souls, godlike rulers who were supposed to stay sealed, and now every step forward is about dismantling a system that once promised salvation. The world here is all about ancient alien tech, Taoist philosophy, and cyberpunk decay, and the revenge angle never feels clean or heroic. It feels bitter, personal, and heavy with regret. Personally, what grabbed me the most was the combat. Parry-focused fights feel sharp and deliberate, and when the rhythm clicks, boss encounters become insanely satisfying. The Teopunk art style is gorgeous, and the music constantly amplifies tension without stealing focus. That said, I won't pretend it's flawless. The difficulty can feel downright punishing if you're not fully locked into deflections, and navigation sometimes made backtracking more annoying than it needed to be. Still, Nine Souls sticks with you because its world and revenge story refuse to let go. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Right from the opening moments, this one hits with a sense of warmth that slowly turns into heartbreak. In this game, the story is about Ori finally finding a family, raising Kut together with Naru and Gumo, and then having that peace ripped away almost immediately. A single flight goes wrong, a storm scatters everyone, and Ori is pulled into the land of Niwen, a place already rotting from neglect and broken guardians. And then comes the rescue mission. It's about restoring balance to a world that lost its spirit willow and watching how corruption twists everything it touches, including creatures like Shriek, who feels less like a villain and more like a consequence. My experience was amazing, honestly. Chases feel desperate. Exploration rewards curiosity, and backtracking never feels wasted because movement itself is the joy. Ori and the Will of the Wisps turns momentum into emotion and makes every jump feel meaningful. Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night. Moving on to a game that thrives by feeling good to play, not by stressing us out. This game is about a curse which feels like a good way to kick things off. You play as Miriam, an orphan dealing with a nasty alchemist's curse that's slowly turning her body to crystal. To save herself and the rest of humanity, she's got to fight her way through a massive castle crawling with demons, summoned by her old friend Gebel, who's already more crystal than human at this point. The deeper Miriam goes, the clearer it becomes that this is no simple good versus evil setup. If you want my take, it feels crazy satisfying to move through the castle. Abilities stack quickly, bosses are fun without being exhausting, and the sheer amount of customization borders on absurd in a good way. The art and music sell that gothic vibe perfectly, making exploration feel rewarding even when nothing major is happening. But what I feel is that this approach also explains the biggest complaint. Difficulty rarely spikes hard enough, and powerful builds can trivialize enemies fast.
Sargon. The citadel, pride of the Persian Empire, is no more.
Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. This game drops you into a crisis that bends time before it even explains itself. You play as Sargon, one of the immortals, sent to Mount Kaf to rescue a kidnapped prince, only to realize the place is cursed far beyond a simple abduction. Time fractures. Allies turn into enemies across different moments, and the mountain itself feels alive, reshaping reality as you move through it. The plot leans heavily into Persian mythology, but it keeps things personal. I mean, he's trying to hold on to identity while time keeps rewriting the rules around him. A lot of people out there keep comparing this to Hollow Knight, and yeah, that comparison comes up constantly. But honestly, it doesn't really need to live under that shadow. It's doing its own thing. Plenty of players have pointed out that while the Metroidvania DNA is obvious, the focus here is way more on speed, acrobatics, and the moment-to-moment flow rather than oppressive atmosphere. Some people also feel the hate comes less from the game itself and more from Ubisoft's name attached to it. Metroid Dread. The concept for Metroid Dread has existed for over 15 years, originally planned for the Nintendo DS before being shelved. It finally came to life when Mercury Steam's technology caught up with Yoshio Sakamoto's original vision, turning a long-rumored idea into a brutal, focused conclusion to Samus's 2D arc. The story starts off with a lie that refuses to stay buried. Samus is sent to planet ZDR after evidence surfaces that the X-parasites, thought to be eradicated, might still exist. The moment she lands, everything goes sideways. A Chozo warrior ambushes her, strips her powers, and seals her underground, forcing Samus to survive in hostile territory while being hunted by enemy robots that feel less like enemies and more like inevitable death. As the plot unfolds more, ZDR reveals itself as a battleground shaped by Chozo's civil war, betrayal, and Ravenbeak's obsession with reviving the Metroids through Samus herself. The story leans hard into identity, evolution, and loss of control, especially as Samus begins to realize her Metroid DNA is no longer dormant. People really appreciated how fluid everything feels. On the flip side, some people also mentioned that the early hours can feel a bit too linear. The music doesn't leave much of a lasting impression compared to classic Metroid soundtracks, and certain enemy encounters or heavier reliance on counters can feel more restrictive than freeing, depending on how you like to play.
The Arch Confraternity awaits you. Those penitents that the miracle itself took as its sentinels.
Blasphemous 2. Our next game pulls the Penitent One straight back into suffering the moment peace seems possible. Following the events of the Wounds of Eventide ending, the miracle has evolved. Awakened in an unfamiliar land and torn from his final rest, the Penitent One is once again trapped in a cycle of resurrection, guilt, and divine punishment. The plot leans hard into religious symbolism and cosmic inevitability. This time, the journey feels less about obedience and more about confronting whether the miracle can truly be ended, or if penance itself is eternal. Every region reinforces that idea, with twisted saints, forgotten rituals, and a world that treats suffering as a sacred law rather than tragedy. Some players felt the sequel sharpened what worked before. Combat feels more refined, progression is smoother, and exploration is denser and more addictive. Others mentioned the challenge isn't quite as brutal and the story feels more restrained compared to the first game's raw mysticism. But I think the game and the maneuvers feel confident. It doubles down on atmosphere, expands player choice, and proves that this pilgrimage still has meaning left to uncover. Aeterna Noctis. Now we're moving on to a game where the story opens on a cosmic curse that refuses to break. The supreme god Chaos creates the universe of Aeterna, only to watch his creations rebel against him. His punishment is cruel and poetic. He binds two rulers, the King of Darkness and the Queen of Light, into an eternal cycle of conflict, forcing them to battle again and again until time itself collapses. You play as the King of Darkness, stripped of power, wandering through a fractured world that feels ancient, hostile, and oddly mournful. A lot of people, including me, fell in love with how vast and imaginative the world feels. The hand-drawn art, haunting soundtrack, and precision-heavy platforming left a lasting impression, with many calling it ambitious and deeply memorable. Others mentioned the difficulty can be brutal, especially in Noctis mode, with certain bosses pushing frustration through screen-filling chaos. Still, despite those rough edges, Aeterna Noctis stands out as something bold, uncompromising, and genuinely special for those willing to endure it. Lilies, Quietus of the Night. The very first thing this world tells you is that hope didn't survive the catastrophe. It only lingered in silence. A cursed rain known as the Rain of Death has twisted every living thing in the kingdom of Land's End into frenzies undead, leaving nothing but ruins and regret behind. Lily awakens alone in a ruined church, untouched by the curse, and slowly steps into a world built on mourning. As she travels deeper, she fights corrupted knights and she frees them. The fallen guardians carry fragments of the past, and by releasing them from their suffering, Lily pieces together what truly caused the kingdom's collapse. I mean, that's quite the plot. Everything stays quiet and restrained, letting ruined castles, drowned forests, and broken characters speak for themselves. I remember really connecting with that somber atmosphere and how the game understands the fundamentals of Metroidvania design, especially the long-term satisfaction of locked paths and delayed rewards. Others felt that the areas, while solid, lacked strong identity, and that combat readability and exploration sometimes leaned too heavily on map markers, giving things a checklist feel. Still, Lilies, Quietus of the Nights, lands as a competent, melancholic journey that scratches the itch, even if it never fully transcends the genre.
Wake up. Time is running out. We need you.
Unsighted. So here's the deal with this one. You play as Alma, an automaton who wakes up after a massive war and immediately realizes something is very wrong. The energy that keeps her and her friends alive, called anima, is running out. And it's not just lore flavor. Time is literally ticking in real time. NPCs will lose their minds and turn unsighted if you take too long. That means you're constantly making calls like, do I explore this area more, or do I rush back and save someone before they're gone for good? That pressure is the story. Gameplay fully leans into that stress. It's a top-down Metroidvania with tight combat, parries, perfect reloads, and a ridiculous amount of build freedom. You can dual-wield swords, run guns, go heavy on parries, whatever fits you. Exploration is open, but every detour costs time, which makes this game feel intense in a way most Metroidvanias don't.
My Baba, my father, your story was snatched away too soon. My name is Zhao, a shaman of Kenzera. Here, I seek my father's return.
Tales of Kenzera, Zhao. In our next game, you play as Zhao, a kid dealing with the death of his father, and the entire game is framed as a story his father left behind. Zhao makes a deal with the god of death to bring his Baba back, but that deal sends him across the land of Kenzera, a place that used to be alive and now is filled with lost spirits and broken myths. The plot isn't thrown at you all at once. It unfolds as Zhao grieves, remembers, gets angry, and slowly understands what letting go actually means. The gods you face are directly tied to pieces of that emotional journey, which makes every major encounter feel personal instead of just another obstacle. Gameplay keeps things fast and expressive. Combat revolves around two masks that swap your abilities on the fly, one focused on close-range aggression, the other on ranged elemental attacks. Movement is smooth, platforming leans more toward flow than punishment, and exploration keeps nudging you forward without overwhelming backtracking. It just feels really refreshing to see a Metroidvania rooted in Bantu mythology rather than the usual gothic or sci-fi tones. Some felt it's more approachable than brutally hard. Axiom Verge. So this one starts off in a way that immediately messes with your head. A scientist named Trace has a lab accident and wakes up in a place that clearly isn't Earth. Or at least, it doesn't feel like any version of Earth that makes sense. Nothing explains itself right away. The world feels broken, hostile, and wrong. Like reality itself is glitching. As you move forward, the story slowly hints that this place might be a distant future, another dimension, or something artificially constructed, and the game never rushes to give you clean answers. It wants you uncomfortable and questioning what's real the entire time. Gameplay leans hard into classic Metroid DNA, but twists it in clever ways. You're exploring a massive, interconnected alien world, picking up strange weapons that don't behave how you expect, and unlocking tools that literally let you break the environment. And yeah, that's not a metaphor. You use glitches as mechanics, corrupting enemies, bypassing walls, and solving puzzles by bending the rules. That's what makes Axiom Verge stick. It feels like a game that knows the rules and enjoys breaking them right in front of you.
Since the dawn of time, their presence brought peace and harmony to the land. Then one fateful day, the God-Slayer rose from the depths.
Yoku's Island Express. For our last game, you get to play as Yoku, a tiny dung beetle who literally rolls into Mokumana Island to start a laid-back job as the new postman. Sounds peaceful, right? Well, that calm vibe doesn't last long. The island is slowly falling apart. The post office is wrecked, and an ancient island deity is stuck in an uneasy sleep that's throwing everything out of balance. This simple mail delivery turns into helping locals, fixing broken regions of the island, and slowly uncovering why this place is hurting in the first place. The story keeps things light and funny, but there's just enough emotional weight underneath to make the island feel worth saving. A lot of people were surprised by how much they loved it. The pinball movement sounds gimmicky until it clicks. Then it feels genuinely brilliant. Exploration stays fun without becoming grindy. The world feels cozy and alive, and the tone stays charming all the way through. Some players mention scarab collecting can be a bit annoying if you ignore it early, but overall the experience lands way stronger than expected. Yoku's Island Express is one of those games people didn't expect to love, then couldn't stop talking about it once they finished it. And that's our list for today. If you played some of these already, you know exactly why they're here. If a few of them are new to you, congratulations. Your free time is officially in danger. Let me know which one hooked you the hardest, or which Metroidvania you think should have been on this list, but wasn't. Drop it in the comments. I read all of them. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives like this, and I'll catch you in the next one.
I will show you my worthiness.
This is the road to Ikakaramba, home to the great spirit of the sky.
The sooner I bring you the Great Spirit, the sooner you return my Baba to me.